U.S. incarcerates more of our population than any other nation on earth while championing civil rights and liberty. Our goal is to deconstruct the power of the state through thoughtful, independent perspectives on our society. I am M. Jane.
And I am Ty Bricker. Welcome to DeCarcerated, if you can handle it. This is Cody Sue, by the way. She will be making random appearances in and out. She does most of our research.
Still more intelligent and effective than who's usually giving us our information.
Okay. And from there, we'll say this. Today we're going over a few different things. We're going over something that we're not going to talk about, which is polling information. And then we're going to go over something we are going to talk about, which for me is going to be active shooter situations and mass casualty events, being that those seem to be happening a lot, and there's some stuff going on with that. And Mel is going to talk about vaccine stuff, which should be really exciting to talk about because that's just been fabulous.
Yeah, no one's tired of that at all.
3 years. So, but little did we know, information just keeps coming to light over and over and over and over. LOL. And then we're going to finish with our coward and hero of the day.
Week.
God, it's always day.
It's okay.
I just hit the thing again, and the whole world looked like we're having an earthquake.
It's okay.
All right. So we're going to start with what we're not talking about today. And what we're not talking about today is that Biden trails Trump in the latest polls. We're not going to talk about that. Okay. Really quick, before I decided to get into what I was going to get into, we're just going to do a real quick overview on what we're not talking about. So, Trump versus who? And Biden versus who? Who are the announced candidates thus far? Well, to challenge Trump, we have 3 announced candidates thus far. Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need an accent on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And Asa Hutchinson.
Close enough.
Okay, announced. So, who are these people really quick? Nikki Haley, former Trump administration ambassador to the United Nations, former governor of South Carolina, daughter of Indian immigrants, first to directly challenge Trump and get into the race, generations younger than Biden and Trump. I really appreciate that, actually. I mean, her polling is currently garbage, even in South Carolina, where she was the governor. Vivek Ramaswamy. Former tech and finance executive, comes from the business world, highly educated, has been a prominent voice in conservative circles, arguing against the environmental, social, and governance, also known as the ESG movement, and against wokeism, air fingers quote. Polling numbers, once again, garbage, even lower than Nikki Haley's. Asa Hutchinson. Hutchinson. Yeah. Former governor of Arkansas, or Arkansas, as I most respectfully like to call it. Additionally, home of the Clintons. Isn't it weird that the Clintons come from flipping Arkansas?
I think it's more astonishing that Rhodes Scholars come from there. No offense, Arkansas.
I mean, like, one of the most powerful families, and you're going to be talking even more about that later, come from Arkansas. It's pretty, the oligarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Head of the oligarchies from Arkansas. Anyway, he's standing against the chaos of Trump and has criticized the former president because of his role in the January 6th insurrection. Another topic for another day. It's a bag of crap we don't really want to unfuck right now, so we're not going to. Hutchinson is also polling garbage. Not declared. Undeclared. Ronnie DeSantis. Or is Trump, who clearly doesn't know that Ronnie is not in the race. Wink, wink.
I got you.
Likes to call him Ron DeSanctimonious, which translates to making a show, being morally superior to other people, adjective, derogatory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, Trump comes up with the best names, man.
Yeah, but it's a bit like the kettle calling the pot black.
Yeah, a little bit. But for that one.
Yeah.
There's also Meatball Ron. If you had to choose between Meatball Ron.
It's meatball. You have to choose meatball, especially when I hear them like next to each other. Meatball's funnier.
I mean, I feel like if I was on stage during a debate and somebody called me like Meatball Tie, I would have to display my roundhouse kick abilities. Or at the very least, my side thrust kick abilities. I mean, but that is like, I agree. Meatball's so much better. Meatball Ron.
It has layers.
It has
layers.
Like, it just is. Okay, what are some of the other awesome names that Trump's come up with? Crooked Hillary, Low Energy Jeb. The Bushes can get F'd, by the way.
Low Energy Jeb is my top.
You know what was the best part about Low Energy Jeb? I remember during a debate after he called him Low Energy Jeb a few times, and then like Jeb Bush tried to show up like all spry in the debate, like overtly spry.
There's no better way to tell a bully that they're impacting you than by trying to overcome the thing that
I'm really happy to be here. Super excited. Yeah. Really love my wife and kids and state of Florida and all these other things.
And methamphetamines.
And my dad. Okay. Sleepy Joe. That didn't work as well, I guess. Lion Ted Cruz. When I look up how many names Trump has given folks, you know how many rows the Google machine comes up with?
My guess is between 20 and 25.
113.
It's a lot more.
113 rows of names. It's pretty amazing. I actually really got a hand to the guy. Rogan and those other guys talk about how he should have been a stand-up comic, and like I have to agree. I think his timing is ridiculous, regardless of whether or not you agree with the guy.
But he's too insecure.
Meatball Ron.
He'd hate hecklers to the point where he would like stop everything just to make sure that they were thrown out.
But you have to be like Bill Burr, right?
There's a difference, though. There is.
Bill Burr welcomes hecklers because he like.
Yeah, but he's self-effacing. He's not insecure
in front of everybody on stage.
Yes. There's a difference, though. Bill Burr is self-effacing. Trump displays insecurity.
Yep. But, I mean, he's been on the political trail for a long time. He's faced hecklers.
He's wildly successful.
He's done a good job.
Yep. Whatever he's doing, he's done it well.
I mean, gotta say it. All right, back to Ronnie. Current governor of California. I couldn't be more opposite than California. Shit.
Wait, opposite of California. Florida.
I loved his COVID policies. Seriously, really, really loved how Florida handled COVID. From 2021 to 2022, fun fact, 500,000 people relocated to Florida. 500,000 people.
Relocated.
Coincidence?
Even if you like control for people who moved there by choice already, people who are retiring, you're still going to have an exponential number of people relocating there specifically for reasons for COVID policy.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, absolutely. All right. So, but Ronnie is not Meatball Ron DeSanctimonious. He's not in the race right now. Love you, Ron. Come on our show. Mark Pence.
Don't come on our show.
Former vice president, massive appeal with the white Christian evangelicals. However, he broke away from Trump, and Trumpy is the Republican Party. Like he is. Just, you got to look, you can look at the polls, you can look at whatever you want, you can make whatever argument you want. Like the dude is currently the Republican Party. It doesn't matter what Mitch McConnell thinks or Lindsey Graham or any of these other dipshits. Like, he is the Republican Party. That's what he is. They can like it or not. It doesn't freaking matter. It's just that's the case. Supports a full ban on abortion, and his polling is also garbage. Everybody's polling is garbage. What about Biden? Once again, we're not talking about this. Okay. Trump versus Biden. According to basically every poll out there right now, Trump is currently beating Biden in every poll. So polls don't like Trump usually. So like he got elected with every poll saying that he wasn't going to get elected. So I think it kind of says something when polls are actually like favoring him, because they usually don't.
Yeah.
Here we go. Buckle up, people. We're going to have plenty of election coverage coming up. Biden's other Democratic opponents. This is a guy that you guys should really look into. I actually really like this dude, and I could easily vote for him. Easily. Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr. It's just not the name. There's a lot that goes with this. How many of you out there have actually looked into this dude? How many have really, really spent some time investigating RFK Jr.? Or even knew that he's openly running, campaigning against Biden right now? The John F. Kennedy's nephew, right? So who is this dude really? Okay, real quick down and dirty on this guy. We'll get into more of this later. Lawyer, not a big fan of lawyers, but he's a lawyer. He's educated. New York City assistant district attorney for 4 years. Harvard graduate. As we found out during the last episode, there seemed to be a lot of Epstein people who liked Harvard people. Epstein liked Harvard people, vice versa, whatever.
I think Harvard produces influential people, and influential people desire to be influential. And Epstein wanted to completely immerse himself in that influence. So it makes sense.
Yeah, but RFK Jr. is not on the list. Hasn't been on the list for anything that has to do with
the
Epstein.
cynic in me is like, yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully not, though.
Founder and chairman of Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine advocacy group. Gotta say, before anything else, what really makes me like this dude, when I Google machine him, he comes up all over the place as being anti-vaccine, anti-science.
Is he truly anti-vaccine?
Absolutely not.
Interesting.
Absolutely not, which we'll talk about here in a minute. He has some serious questions about the efficacy of the rollout of the COVID vaccine, the mandates, the mask wearing, the social distancing, the time it took to roll out the vaccine, which was unprecedented, obviously.
Yeah.
Got to say, all this makes the left absolutely hate him. Like, the left hates this dude. Hates this dude. As a matter of fact, there's been a few interviews with him on some of the major news networks, and they won't even air it. They won't even air the interviews because he came up with, well, apparently, I mean, this is what I heard on Crystal and Sagar, by the way. If you don't get a chance to listen to Crystal and Sagar on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, they're fantastic. Yep. There was a thing on there that there was a few reporters, journalists who interviewed him. And the only thing they did was after the interview, they spoke about all of the misinformation he presented. They didn't air the interview. So you have these reporters, air fingers quote, journalists, who interviewed RFK Jr., and they wouldn't air the interview because, assumingly, he made probably a lot of good points and made them look like assholes.
Yeah.
It was like, that's what I'm guessing. Like, why wouldn't you air it?
Why do you hide
Because he made
something?
You look like an asshole.
If he was saying
and then
things
they were
that,
like,
yeah, exactly.
Everything's misinformation. Okay. Well, like I said, the left hates him right now.
Well, I have to say something. You purposefully withhold the interview and then state we couldn't air it because of misinformation. Tells the
They
public.
Don't say that they couldn't air it because of anything. They just say that they interviewed RFK Jr. and this were his talking points and this is where he misled people.
He misled people that he didn't get to speak to directly?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so that tells me that you either A, are hiding something from me, or B, think that I'm a nincompoop and cannot suss out truth for myself.
Dude, we're talking about the same people that said Joe Rogan was taking horse dewormer and that filtered his face in his interviews.
To make him look
like, sick.
Oh my God, it's just ridiculous.
This was fake-ass bullshit.
It is.
All right. Well, what do you think he's polling at right now? What do you think RFK Jr. is polling at against Biden right now?
What's the threshold for garbage?
Nikki Haley, 2%.
I'm going to, okay, 10%.
20. He's at 20% right now without any kind of serious advertising, campaigning.
What are Biden and Trump at?
20. Well, it depends on the state and it depends on the opponents. I mean, Biden is polling lower than Trump. Trump is polling higher than all the other Republican candidates. I mean, technically, Trump's polling higher than anybody right now.
What party is RFK Jr.?
Democrat. He wants to challenge Biden.
So he's at 20%.
He's at 20%,
and he's
Democratic
unannounced.
Party. And he's I think he is announced, but he's like.
I didn't hear about him until you started talking about him, though.
Mm-hmm.
And he's at 20%.
He's at 20%, which is amazing. Yeah. I mean, he's at 20%. This far ahead of 2024 with no debates, no real campaigning, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, that's really where he's getting all of his stuff from. The DNC is so worried about Biden facing him that they're not allowing debates under any circumstances. They've already said overtly to the general public through the mass media that they will not, under any circumstances, have any debates.
Why?
For this?
What's their reasoning?
Because he's the incumbent.
Why is that a reason?
It's really not, because there's precedent already for incumbents having to face debates.
100% you should.
On both parties.
When I think about like a wolf pack or like a lion pride.
Reagan did. There was a lot of people that were incumbents in the past that had to debate.
Well, it's not royalty. You don't just get the position because you had the position. If you were in a wolf pack, you were in a lion pride. If you were anything in general as a leader, you are challenged by newcomers, and you prove your mettle and you prove your worth.
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably, I mean, I think the real reason is because he's going to be 80 freaking 2 years old come 2024. 82.
Yeah.
And for those of you like age, I mean, it's a shitty thing to have to talk about, but it's absolutely appropriate. Dianne Feinstein is currently serving in Congress, and she has full-blown Alzheimer's. She doesn't show up for votes. She's representing the people of California, and she's not even there. So really she's misrepresenting her elected constituents, which still voted her into office, knowing how old she was and the fact that she had dementia and now Alzheimer's. My dad died of Alzheimer's. He was in his mid-70s. It's a really sad thing to watch people go through. So it's not as if I don't have sympathy for this kind of thing. I absolutely do. But like, would I tell you that my dad should have been president of the United States? Or like a congressman or a senator or even a local politician? Like, no. He did not have the cognitive abilities at all the last 4 or 5 years of his life to be able to execute that kind of task. Like, not even close. I mean, 82? All right. The guy is extremely well educated, well versed in science and politics, complete with the Kennedy name, and wouldn't absolutely mop the floor with Biden. He would absolutely mop the floor with Biden. I mean, that's why they don't want him to do a debate. Yeah. I mean, RFK Jr., like, he would slaughter him. It would be a bloodbath on stage. I mean, especially if they started to talk about COVID policies and vaccines and mandates and like different things like that. I mean, just
anything specific.
Yep, anything specific, really. I mean, there's a reason why they don't want him to debate this guy. Okay, so we'll get into that stuff later. What are we really here to talk about? We're not talking about polling, even though we've spent 15 minutes talking about polling. So what we're really here to talk about today, why not dive into something as triggering as mass shootings and active shooter events on our second podcast ever?
Light content.
Like, why not? Right? Not controversial at all. Unfortunately, active shooter events have become commonplace in our society. It's not really popular to talk about this, but I know it's becoming more and more necessary, unfortunately. Since 2023 began, how many active shooter events do you think there have been?
Since the beginning, it's January 2023. I had guessed 4.
Yeah, it was something like that. Mm-hmm. It's 185. Yeah, 185 active shooter events. At least that's what the Google machine tells us. However, that number is a little bit bogus, as it includes shootings that were either a singular individual was killed, which
then
that's still awful.
What's the qualifying factor for mass shooting?
Or even zero individuals have been killed, which isn't exactly a mass casualty active shooter event, though firearms were involved, which is the real culprit here. Okay, they're really talking about firearm events. Yes. So, like, if you look at this, it's very, like, there are tons. When you look at this website, all you got to do is Google active shooter events or mass casualty events for 2023. There is lots of zeros here for dead. Lots and lots and lots of zeros.
Yikes.
So, I mean, realistically speaking, that's kind of a blown up number intentionally, but not to say that there's not a problem. There's obviously a problem.
What are the qualifying definitions for, like, mass?
I mean, it really seems like this is just firearms. Just, like, as long as
opening fire involved in a public place.
I don't know. I mean, there's events where nobody was wounded and nobody was killed.
That makes no sense.
And it still was classified as an active shooter event. All right. The latest mass casualty event took place on May 6th, just a few days ago in Allen, Texas. There was 9 dead, 10 wounded. But what's really interesting about the shooting in Allen, Texas is the controversy it sparked over the shooter's identity. That's why we're talking about this, and we're not talking about RFK Jr., polling, Trump, Biden, kind of what I plan to talk about. So who is the shooter and why so much controversy?
I will say, I'm going to interject really quick that what was the number originally?
135.
I swallowed my drink wrong. So when you control for the actual, like, it means 4 or more people killed. That's considered a mass shooting. Generally, though, there's no standardized definition. There still has been 22 with 4 or more people killed.
Okay. So I guess it really just depends on which website you look at.
It's still unreasonable.
Yeah. I mean, 135 is a hell of a long way from 20-something.
It is, but it's also defining people who have opened fire with a weapon that has like a rapid fire capability, right?
I guess. I mean, that's not.
We'll follow up on that.
I mean, that's going. We have many numbers here, but it really depends on who's doing the reported and who's doing the defining.
And there is no clear definition.
And whether you're talking about 22 or 135 in just a few months, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So the May 6th event, to get back to that, who was the shooter and why so much controversy? The shooter was a 33-year-old named Mauricio Garcia. The controversy is that he's Latino. That is the controversy, or Mexican American. However, he also identified as a white supremacist. Is it possible for someone to be a Latino and a white supremacist? Question mark, exclamation point.
I guess you'd have to define what a white supremacist is.
Nazi. Fascist. Okay. Apparently so. After all, we've kind of been living in the land of make-believe for a while, it seems. It's also important to point out that Garcia enlisted in the United States Army. He lasted a grand total of 3 months, didn't even make it through basic training, which tells me that he was super unstable.
Yep.
As somebody who spent an extensive amount of time in the United States military. How do we know that this Latino was a white supremacist? Getting back to what we were just talking about. Well, maybe it was the SS and swastika tattoos on his arm and chest.
Could do it.
I mean, I got a lot of ink. I don't have any SS or swastika shit. Or it could have been the Velcro patch on his plate carrier, kit, body armor, however you want to define it, which identified the following acronym, RWDS. Do you know what that stands for? Because I didn't. I did not know what it stood for.
RW, right wing.
Right wing. First two, right.
I'm going to need the DS.
Death Squad. Right wing death squad. Yep. Apparently, far right groups within the United States are using this acronym. Been a hot minute since I've been a Fed. So, too long. A little bit out the game.
Because it's repeated, though. It's people just trying to create groups and families and tribes to which they can belong.
Yep.
Sad.
Again, why so much controversy? Well, those on the right express that this is far too convenient. I mean, a Mexican-American Nazi? I can understand why some folks are skeptical. Seriously. Most everybody knows and understands that the media is kind of a one-way lizard here. If they get the chance to demonize a conservative, they're definitely going to do it. Precedent is very, very, very transparent about that. Also, based on what you said in last week's show, there's not a lot of trust out there for the establishment mass media. There's not. There is lack of trust all the time. It's pretty much dying. However, I've done a lot of research on this incident, literally hours, and this is what we found. Garcia had a social media account on a Russian social media website named Okru. Okru. I have no idea what that website is. He had no connections. He had no friends. He followed no groups. and stuff, basically, from what I get out of this. There's still a lot to be discovered here, but so far. His posts were kind of diary-like. There was a picture of his black civilian-style tricked-out kit plate carrier, which included that RWDS, right-wing
Death Squad.
Death Squad patch. He also had a Texas flag Velcro patch and the present Punisher patch. I'm so goddamn sick of the Punisher patch.
People have ruined that comic. It's unfair because it's an excellent comic.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that went into it. I mean, Chris Kyle identified with the Punisher patch. There was the Netflix series, the Uvalde coward cops in Uvalde, Texas, who let 20-something kids die. All were wearing like Punisher patches and shit on their kits. But it also should be known, and I have to say this, the cops that showed up on scene now in Texas were shit hot. They showed up. The guy that was originally there, who responded initially to the call, wasn't even there for that. He was responding to a separate call when he heard the sound of gunfire, and he took off like and neutralized this dude. So
that's awesome.
Fantastic.
What was this person?
He was a cop.
Good.
Anyway, that's Punisher stuff, whatever. A second picture in this social media website has him with his shirt off, sporting his SS and swastika tattoos. He also has a big Texas state flag tattoo. Not flag, state tattoo. And a cartoon image saying that Latino children have two options. Act black, or become a white supremacist. Act black or become a white supremacist. Is this a thing? Have you heard that in any of your social work stuff with Latinos or Latinas talking about you have two options to either be black or white supremacist?
What it's saying is assimilate or rebel. It's creating an unfair dichotomy. And it's like a hallmark of a black and white thinker that will become an extremist. And it because it's nonsensical.
Yeah, what it really says.
I've never heard that from a sensible person.
Yeah, I don't think Hispanics have a hard time identifying with being Hispanic. I mean, based on my experience.
It's like a rich, beautiful culture.
It's very, very vibrant, colorful. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of. I mean, it's. Anyway, we'll get into more. He was obviously just a severely mentally deficient person. That's really what we're talking about. What else? Okay, back to the controversy. News outlets have reported the following. Okay, this is why it's a controversy. Via the Washington Post, investigators examined Texas gunmen's white supremacist views after 8 killed. Ended up being 9. The Wall Street Journal. Officials probe Texas mall shooters' possible link to white supremacy. There are more headlines out there like this, but you probably get the gist. If you Google machine it, it's basically like everybody is saying white supremacist, white supremacist, white supremacist, white supremacist, right wing, right wing, right wing, right wing. They really, really, really want to make that connection. Here's the deal. We cannot rationalize irrational behavior. Okay? Mm-hmm. When someone shoots up a school, killing unarmed children in the most terrible way possible, that person is not reasonable, stable. Okay? We cannot rationalize irrational behavior by simply titling it. Okay? Rather than saying that a crazy person who had serious mental health defects shot up a school, the media is saying that a right-wing Nazi shot up the school. Yeah. This is what we're talking about. Okay? For years, the prominent news networks, including Fox, especially now that Tucker's out, great move there, have desperately attempted to make us all hate each other. Literally hate each other. Folks that wouldn't go out and get the jab were labeled as anti-vaxxers or anti-science or anti-truth or anti-people. Neighbors were told to spy and report on their neighbors. Don't think for a second that those individuals with real inferiority complexes weren't super stoked to rat out their fellow man. Like, it was disgusting to see how many folks couldn't wait to get somebody in trouble. Really got off on it. I think everybody out there kind of witnessed that a little bit. That's true. What do we have here? We have a seriously psychologically deficient young man. That's what we have. Doesn't matter that he's Latino? Nope. Doesn't matter that he identified with white supremacists for some reason? Nope. Doesn't matter that this dude was obviously and overtly fucked up? Yeah, that should matter a lot. There was a history with this guy. Why was he posting on a Russian site? Because he'd already been kicked off YouTube and other American sites. Kicked out for posting, I'm going to kill a motherfucker kind of stuff. That's what he was posting. Have you ever watched videos that individuals with severe mental health deficiencies, issues have made? It's like looking into another dimension. They're not here. They're not here the way you and I are here. The stuff that Garcia posted, he isn't here the way you and I are here either. That's super clear. The same can be said for almost every active shooter that creates a mass casualty event. For instance, case in point, and there's lots of these. Just point this out though. Remember that active shooter from Tennessee? March 27th. Transgender named Audrey Hale. Audrey was a transgender female, and he, whatever, killed 6 people, including 3 kids at a Tennessee school. Okay?
If this was somebody that wasn't, if this was somebody that did do we ever say this about somebody who does not have transgender in their identity? Do we ever say this was done by someone who identifies as a heterosexual cis male? Never.
It's not usually in the language.
No, sorry. Continue. It just, that bothers me. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's.
What was the difference in media coverage? Remember those headlines I read? Let me refresh your memory in case you don't remember the headlines that I just read to you like 15 minutes ago. Washington Post. Investigators examined Texas gunmen's white supremacist views after 8 killed, eventually 9. The Wall Street Journal. Officials probe Texas mall shooters' possible link to white supremacy. Those are the headlines. Headline after headline after headline. Detailed white supremacy right-wing extremist. Not a whole lot of talk about him being Latino or Mexican American. It was just Nazi right-wing extremist. That's it. No mention about severe mental health issues either. What about the trans shooter? Okay. The media represented the shooter in a completely different way, very overtly. Let's use the same 2 media outlets as examples to start, and then we'll go to more. The Washington Post, once again, headline: The right exploits Nashville shooting to escalate anti-trans rhetoric. The Wall Street Journal. Tennessee Republicans face pressure after Nashville school shooting. Okay, seems pretty different, but let's not be one-way lizards ourselves either here. What were their other outlets saying? Reuters. Trans Tennesseans face backlash after school shooting. Open Democracy. U.S. right exploits Nashville school shooting to marginalize trans people. ABC News. Anti-trans sentiment follows Nashville shooting as some conservatives focus on shooter's identity. That's only a conservative thing, right? ABC News, again, anti-transgender sentiment follows Nashville shooting. AP News, photo of trans woman holding a gun misrepresented after Nashville shooting. Misrepresented. Okay? This is hilarious, but it's not because it's ridiculous. Okay? This is referencing a posted photo of a trans female, originally a male, right? Taken after the shooting. The posted photo is of her holding a gun and calling for violence against Christians, referencing a trans day of vengeance. Okay? Listen, she isn't just holding a gun, people. Okay? She's got a decked out AR-15. She's got a pistol attached to a gun belt on her hip and a black plate carrier vest, body armor, kit, exactly the same as homeboy Latino, Nazi. Could you imagine if just for 1 second, if a right-winger did this and posted it after the shooting and said, conservative day of vengeance? Like, I mean, this is what we're talking about. Could you imagine just for a second? Okay. Like here, I'm going to let you look really quick at this picture I'm talking about, just so you can see. And you know what I really love about this picture? She's wearing a mask. She's wearing a mask. She's got an AR-15, a plate carrier, 3 30-round magazines,
She's an MMA fighter.
a pistol with an extended mag.
The image was misrepresented in the wake of a school shooting. So what this is doing is this is pushing the narrative to be about trans rights instead of a significantly mentally ill human being who decided to extinguish the lives of children because of their own internal
extinguishing
state.
the lives of children.
Children,
They're
yes.
talking about politics.
Exactly.
We are talking about the killing of children.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking
Which is the honest truth. This is what you are reporting, is the murder of children.
So you got this. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. CBC News. Trans people already fighting for rights in Tennessee have a new fear in the wake of tragedy. Fox News. White House says trans community is under attack after Nashville shooting. NPR. Your taxes pay for NPR, by the way, in case you're wondering. Advocates fear an escalation of hate towards trans community after Nashville shooting. KCRA, which is like an NBC News affiliate or something. Transgender people face rhetoric and disinformation. Keyword again, disinformation. We love that word. After shooting.
What does that even mean?
So it goes on and on and on. We have multiple shootings.
How are trans people specifically facing disinformation? What does that mean?
So you have 2 different shootings taking place. One was a Latino Nazi. The other one is trans.
Both are mass killers.
Both killed children, dude.
Yeah,
both
but what are we highlighting?
Murdered children in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And there is completely different coverage.
Yep.
Completely. I just literally laid out 10 different news outlets that reported at the exact right after the incident, and the news outlets that reported on the Latino Nazi, who didn't even want to call him Latino.
Yeah. That's all about identity. It's whatever your identity is, whatever you ascribe to, whatever can create power and influence.
It goes on and on and on and on and on. The divide couldn't be more obvious or more dangerous. Why do conservatives and right-wingers think that the Latino Nazi is fake? Why? I wonder. Because it's posted pictures of a black plate carrier and propaganda isn't handled the same as a trans posting pictures of a black plate carrier with propaganda.
Yeah.
It's the same weapon system, same plate carrier.
Same mental health issues that lead you to being alienated from general society, and then like whether it's a racial identity or a sexual or gender identity, what it is that it's an identity issue that's being exacerbated by identity politics.
Yep. All right. Couldn't be more different. On one side, they're calling for tolerance and acceptance. Even after
forgiveness.
Yep. Even after killing children at a school. On the other side, they're calling for hate and vengeance.
Yeah.
Neither is journalism. Neither is okay. We have a serious problem in our country, and that problem is hate. Hate from the left and hate from the right. The media acts as if it's somehow self-righteous, only reporting the news. But they're not. They're not self-righteous. It's not just the facts, man. They're trying to dehumanize us. They're trying to get us to dehumanize each other, to hate each other, to have sides drawn in the sand, to have their picked winners and losers. They do not want to veer from the narrative to which they subscribe. Clearly, this is not about firearms, people, or firearm ownership. It's about who owns the firearm, not the firearm itself.
Yeah.
Shift to you.
That is powerful, though.
It's
true.
It's a problem. We got 5 kids in schools.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, shout out to my boy Easy, who after the Uvalde shooting showed up to schools in Texas armed to watch out for his kids. I mean, love you, buddy. Absolutely Love you. And you got all the recognition that you got was well deserved, man.
Yeah. And then
Former
some.
former
Yep.
Ranger. Anyway,
That's good. All right. We're going to transition. We're going to talk about a couple of things that have just come up, and they're correlated to this like mass media identity politics kind of coverage. So, recently, according to the WHO or WHO or World Health Organization, they, as well as UNICEF, an entity called Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as the Immunization Agenda 2030, and other global and national health partners are collaborating to initiate the Big Catch Up, a targeted global effort to boost vaccination among children following declines driven by the COVID-19 pandemic. It's important here to distinguish between well established, well researched, longitudinal study supported vaccinations and ones that were force fed to the public to promote either fear or financial gain for the people creating them. There's a huge difference. So recently, Chelsea Clinton has jumped on board and she has labeled, right? She's labeled vaccine hesitancy. Well, unfortunate. It's a result of disinformation. There's a lot to unpack here. So, first of all, Chelsea Clinton, super wicked smart. She's well educated. She's got a ton of experience researching and speaking about global policy, international relations, all of that. But even with this legitimacy of background, there remains an enormous issue of her role within her family, her own personal interests, her relationship with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was dogged in promoting the seemingly perfect COVID vaccine, only to adjust their perspective on its infallibility after they financially benefited from its widespread sale. All of which really highlights a different issue altogether. It's just really annoying, that little statement from Chelsea Clinton that winds me up. It's unfortunate. Smarts of moral superiority, which I find to be one of the nastiest, most inhumane approaches to healthcare policy, of which she has many degrees. So, vaccine hesitancy is this term being offered up by vaccine promoting entities. But let's be super clear here. Vaccinations are absolutely not a black and white issue. They are life altering in a variety of ways, positively and negatively. There are vaccines that I have chosen for my kids and myself, and there are ones that I've declined in favor of natural immunity or as a result.
How dare you?
I know, right?
How dare you take away from the pharmaceutical companies?
I know they need your
And
support.
decide to do your own thing.
But here's the thing: is
PhD candidate or not.
well, and here's the thing, though. You either can develop natural immunity or you can look at the risk and reward kind of ratio, right? So you're saying, okay, well, I feel like the protective factors of this vaccine are going to trump the risk factors of accepting it. That's fine. But that's my job. That's my job as a parent, as a human being, as a citizen, is to ensure that I am putting good into not just my community, but specifically my kids, like spiritually, intellectually, psychologically, physically, and medically. So, this means that I, like many parents, need to critically consider the information presented to me to make informed choices about what's best for our kids. So,
once again, how dare you?
I know, how dare I? How dare I? But it's important to point this out. We live in a very black and white society, either or, yes or no, you are, on the fence, you're not. It's like the really antiquated kind of fundamentalist religious like thing where it's like, if you are on the fence, then you're with the devil. But that's not really the case. That's not how humans were made. It's not how we were intended. Vaccine hesitancy is not vaccine aversion. It's not vaccine refusal. It's reluctance. It's just confusing to me why we are so shocked that people are reluctant to immediately resume medical treatments from entities with a now well-documented recent history of misinformation, harmful health advice, and outright lies for financial gain.
Hey, Mel.
Yeah.
What's the most fined industry in the history of the United States of America?
Pharmaceutical industry. What's the most marked up industry that trumps even textbook sales?
Hey, who's killed more? Which industry has killed more people than even the prison industry?
Oh my God, pharmaceutical.
Pharmaceutical companies have killed more people in
Mhm.
prisons.
You know what? And the irony of
And
this
we
is
put a lot
that,
of people in jail, man.
and you know what?
We'll
We
put
put them
people
in
in
jail
jail like at
often
the
for
top of the hat.
abusing and distributing pharmaceuticals. Ah, it's horrible. All right. So the data on COVID-related deaths, the efficacy of these so-called vaccines, the impacts of preventative treatments like vitamin D and other supplements, and the massive revealing of gain-of-function research, which, by the way, most people, including myself, had to Google to understand what that was when it first came out, has left all of our access to truth and the revealing of truth completely obfuscated and relabeled science as a thing to be leveraged rather than a cumulative process of revealing truths, both comfortable and conflicting, in an effort to understand. The role of scientific research is to explore, define, explain, and predict, not to be held as a noun in the hands of people directly benefiting financially or socially. Just to be really clear, we're going to put vaccinations and the idea of vaccine hesitancy into a different context so we can better understand the reality of what's being pushed on this. Okay, so this is a little history lesson. In the mid 20th century, the American food industry was ramping up production of highly processed foods that leveraged corn syrup and other like cheap, tasty, mass-produced ingredients like all-purpose bleached refined flour to create products that had long shelf lives, hit on specific taste preferences.
None of that sounds like it'll give you cancer.
No, not at all. Or make you obese and all of the different problems that come with that. But they're incredibly convenient. So, corn syrup, also, by the way, was used by farmers just to fatten up cattle when finishing off for slaughter, right? So, we literally use something that we made bovines, cows, very fat, very quickly, and we put it into human consumption in mass quantities. And then we were shocked and appalled that obesity rates somehow like went through the roof concurrently with health disorders. And it's just so insane to me that we have all of this data about the correlating factors of corn syrup into our food and obesity and heart disease and all of those other issues. And we were all shocked. And so you'd think that our response would be, we should stop doing that.
Shocking.
But no. Processed wheat flour has made for quick production.
You don't think
ability,
the pharmaceutical companies benefit from obesity, do you?
not at all. They definitely don't make money out of keeping people ill chronically.
Definitely not. I mean, like vitamin C and sunlight, who the fuck should do that?
Yeah.
Exercise, maybe not eat as much.
Definitely vitamin D hasn't been implicated in a litany of different functions that allow you to have really positive physiological health. But whatever,
Just
it's
take
fine.
pills and shit. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
just take your pills. You're
Just take
fine.
your pills.
Processed wheat flour, quick production. You can make, really visually appealing lighter products. You can take off that annoying little like wheat husk and germ. And so it makes baking simpler. And it also quietly removes the lipids that are protecting the enzymatic process of digestion. So we very, very, very rapidly took all of the good out of the grain and introduced a lot of like poor supplemental features to it that our body doesn't understand. And so suddenly, while whole grains have historically always provided fiber, vitamins, minerals, other nutrients, regulation of cholesterol, weight, blood pressure, lowering risk for heart disease and other conditions, well, suddenly we have bread that has been pumped so full of additives to try and compensate for what's been taken out in the process that we have people with increasing sensitivity to gluten. We have people with celiac disease. But what's weird,
Lactose.
yeah, lactose intolerance as well. But
They cook all the good shit out of the milk.
They do because they pasteurize it because
people become lactose intolerant.
Our baseline level for milk
You think that
is the kind of dairy French people throw away.
1,000 years ago?
Absolutely not.
Fuck no, man. People could eat all that stuff.
They could
because we could digest it.
Exactly. Because often you see someone like, for right now, if you see someone with a significant gluten issue, they're able to eat homemade sourdough. because
Wait a minute, isn't sourdough a bread?
oh god,
Isn't gluten bread?
yes. But here's the thing: sourdough has ingredients that are understood by our bodies far more than anything within processed breads. So, what does bread and gluten and sugar and processed foods and corn syrup have to do with the pharmaceutical industry? Well, here's the tie-in. The food industry, comprised of less than 10 major food corporations, have lobbied, donated, pressured, demonized, done everything in their power to ensure that what they sell for record profits is labeled as healthy, regardless of the actual nutritional value and health benefits within the product. So rather than sugar being addictive and contributing to obesity, it was, how about fats? It's fats. Because sugar is cheap and easy to sell, and removing fat for its evilness and adding more sugar to combat loss of
And fat's
taste.
fat, right? Fat just makes
Oh,
you
yeah.
fat.
Fat makes you fat. If you
No
eat
way
fat, you're going to get fat.
No way sugar makes you fat.
Yeah, not at all, because sugar has no fat in it.
Sugar doesn't make you fat.
Have you looked at a package of
Fat
gummy
makes
worms or gummy bears? They say fat-free.
Fat-free,
This is a fat-free
30
food.
grams of sugar per serving, 27 servings in the package.
That would be like me giving, that would be like me giving you like hemlock
You want to snort
tea.
some of this shit? You want to bump off this?
Right?
How about I just throw a line of sugar out on the table right now?
Yep. But that would be like me giving you hemlock tea and being like, it's all natural, it's organic.
I like my poison sweet.
Yeah. Beautiful. So it's fats. We decided to demonize fats because the sugar industry had a lot more money and a lot more to gain. Sugar's cheap. It's easy to sell. And so if we remove that fat for its evilness and we add more sugar to combat that loss of taste and all those other naturally occurring complex features of eating something with actual healthy fat, well, it's a simple solution to a very made up problem. So today, people are actually combating this. They are using access to an incredible breadth and depth of knowledge about nutrition, and they are using this to augment their lives and the health of their families along with it. So often, in spite of traditional medical advice and industry-friendly food pyramids that are pretty much backwards in what they're recommending, we're slowly recognizing that the reality of what's being recommended is actually in direct conflict to our well-being. And while some information and products are helpful and good, they're among others with similar promotions that are absolutely and inarguably harmful. Knowing that sugar and processed foods are strongly correlated with increased risk of health issues means that I can make better choices about what kind of processed food I'm going to ingest, in what form, when, how much I think is acceptable risk to myself and my family. I understand the benefits of low stress preparation, easy kid lunches, affordability, longer shelf life, and in some cases, decently nutritional options. I am, therefore, proudly processed food hesitant. Sugar hesitant.
How dare you again?
How dare I?
Give money to the people that need the money.
Right? Definitely not families that need the money,
No.
but it's large corporations.
Corporations are families. Corporations are people.
Oh, yeah, of course.
The Supreme Court said the corporations are people.
It's the worst thing ever.
The Supreme
It's
Court
horrific. So here's the thing: is I need more information about whatever it is before I yoink it down, because there's a lot that goes into it.
Really quick, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the marijuana debate. It's like 150,000 people a year at least die from alcohol-related deaths,
and that has nothing to do with the people, the fracturing and dismantling of families as a result of it. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's that too. But marijuana hasn't killed a person. But marijuana is a Schedule I narcotic that you'll get put in a fucking cage for. Used to be indefinitely. At least it's not that anymore. But it's like a lot of money in the alcohol business.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently. 150,000 people die a year.
And don't
if
even
you
think
use
about
marijuana,
the tobacco industry, yeah.
You'll get federally convicted of a federal felony and get put in a cage for it. Forever. Meanwhile, it doesn't kill people. Helps people sleep. Helps anxiety. I'll tell you right now. It wasn't until I stopped 20 plus years of piss testing before I really, really realized the benefits of marijuana, because it would get me fired for every other job that I had. I mean, piss on all those jobs now, quite frankly. I mean, this reminds me a lot of that kind of stuff. It's like the sugar industry versus the fats, marijuana versus alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like everything else. Follow the money.
Yeah,
Follow
the money. Because if it's pick your poison, then that's an individual choice. But if it's choose what benefits me, then it becomes about money. And it has nothing to do with your health.
Absolutely.
Zero. So right now, I'm sugar hesitant. I need more information before I put it in my body because there's a lot that goes into it. And as you were saying,
you're not just going to trust without verifying?
Shocking. But it seems like there's a lot of financial incentive that will absolutely continue to overwhelm.
I feel like I don't know you anymore.
If corporations have the option to make money off of my unhealthiness, they will do so. My health is never their priority. So what we're faced now with the sugar equivalent is the pharmaceutical production of life-saving vaccines. So people are legitimately mistrustful of positional authority figures that have recent and documented histories of placing their own interests before the good of individual citizens. And when we criticize and vilify people asking for truthful information and full data sets, when we dismiss people for insisting on financial transparency and health policy and government, when we describe them as vaccine hesitant, which is unfortunate, we are insisting that critical thought is secondary to compliance because compliance means you care about others. But I am of Ferrerian philosophy and mindset. Caring about others to me means
collective, right?
means that you give them.
It's all about the collective, people.
Oh, it is
the collective over the individual. Except it's not about the collective.
It's not. Guess what benefits the community?
It's not about the collective. It's about the oligarchy.
Yeah.
It's like I remember hearing Andrew Wilkow say something on. He's a talk show host, and I listen to a lot of different people. He's more conservative, but he said something that rang really, really true, especially during the pandemic, where he said that socialism is for the people, not the socialist.
Yeah.
And it's like any of this stuff. It's for the people. It's not for those in power.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's 100%. It's not for them. It's for you. You.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. Because to me, caring about others actually means you give them the tools and the information so that and empathy, compassion, understanding, a wide, diverse set of information to create choices that are in the best interests of them, by them, for them, even if you disagree with them. That's the basis of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the ability to live autonomously and help others to do so as well. You take no shit and you do no harm. I feel like I should get that tattooed somewhere on me.
I do too.
Right? There is no greater antidote.
Timestamp?
right above the I don't know if above your bum you should write take no shit.
I feel like
do no harm.
I feel like tramp stamps are making a comeback. You just got to
we should relabel them. Tramp stamps identify as. Yeah. It's true. No, let me go back to it. This is the basis of freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We're here. It's the ability to live autonomously and help others to do well, as I said. So there's no greater antidote to subjugation than education. There's no stronger force than an informed public empowered with access to research rooted in integrity and diverse perspectives. I refuse to accept vaccine hesitant as a label indicating...
What's the biggest threat to the king or the church?
Informed people?
Education.
Exactly.
Historically with the church. I'm not talking about postmodern Christian churches that kick ass and take names. I'm talking about
temple systems.
From like the 1500s that
exactly.
raping children.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. So, I refuse to accept vaccine hesitant as a label indicating moral standing or individual value. Hesitancy and blind acceptance of life-altering choices is the pause necessary to engage critical thought. Hesitancy is not ignorance, belligerence, or harm. Creating broad moral arguments for politicized initiatives is propaganda, and publicly expressing pity for those questioning presented information. So, I refuse to accept vaccine hesitant as a label indicating moral standing or individual value. Hesitancy and blind acceptance of life altering choices is the pause necessary to engage in critical thought. Hesitancy is not ignorance or belligerence or harm. Creating broad moral arguments for politicized initiatives is propaganda. And publicly expressing pity for those questioning presented information from dishonest sources is gaslighting. And I think it's time to talk about our coward of the week.
The coward of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. Yeah. So exciting. Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Secretary of Transportation
So
Pete
sad.
Buttigieg. Hey, babe. How'd you feel about old Mayor Pete a few years ago? Because I remember having awesome conversations
I had a sign in my
about
yard.
Pete Buttigieg.
I had a sign in my yard.
You had a Pete Buttigieg sign.
Mayor Pete.
I still came to your house even after that.
How dare you? He wasn't garbage until later.
You're so right. What did
I loved it. I loved that. I love that he had a gay marriage and a cute one-eyed dog, and it was so great. And he seemed well spoken. He said the right things.
It's funny. I'm kind of like way more concerned about content of character.
I thought the content of his character was excellent. Those are my markers. How do you speak? How do you relate? How do you care for people? You have a disabled dog. You are a minority in being gay.
All that shit.
You apparently you can.
You can practice all that stuff.
Please continue my betrayal.
Apparently, the Secretary of Transportation has extraordinary power. Who would have known? Can you name the Secretary of Transportation for Trump, Clinton, Obama,
0 people.
Bush?
I can name as many secretaries of transportation as I can WNBA players. This is 0.
Well, Brittany Griner, right? She went to Russia.
Nope, wouldn't have known her name. Know who she is when you say it.
Jailed for weed over there too. Yeah. Jesus.
Mm.
If we know who you are as the Secretary of Transportation, that's probably a problem.
It's either phenomenal or horrific.
Probably means you suck at your job.
Yeah.
Based on how our society operates. Okay? That's probably what it means. We don't really celebrate happiness all that often. Okay. Pete Buttigieg is the Secretary of Transportation, people. Has been since Biden was elected and he was appointed. We're going to go over a few things here and get into why he's the coward of the week or the last few years. Airlines have been overbooking people and ripping people off, knowing that they do not have the manpower. Passengers do not get reimbursed, only offer different tickets. PD has done nothing. So what they're doing is they're overbooking by a lot, and they're not letting people know that that certain flights are just canceled basically from the go. Yeah. And instead of giving you back your money, they're saying, how about we just change this to a different ticket?
Store credit.
Store credit. Okay. So during COVID-19, the airline industry was given a $60 billion with a B, $60 billion bailout. I can't even, I don't even know what $60 billion. I can't even, my monkey brain can't.
Here's the deal.
$60 billion.
$1 million is life-changing for us.
Dude, $1 million? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
if
$60 billion is...
If we had $1 million, just and then take the taxes even. Mm-hmm. Take the taxes from it.
Still life-changing.
Unbelievable amount of money. Mm-hmm. Okay, $60 billion bailout to the airline industry. Guess what they did after they got the bailout? Which the bailout was to keep them running, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, usually the people that we just give money to for fucking nothing or make great choices with it.
For sure.
So after they got the $60 billion, these airline industries retired a lot of their pilots and a lot of their maintenance workers and a lot of their other positions. Okay, so they took the money and then they retired people and they kept the money. Not sure where a lot of that went. Seems like that should be something that we should look at, kind of like how much money we give Ukraine that just fucking like isn't accounted for at all.
Just disappears.
Okay. Fast forward to February 3rd, 2023. I mean, that like wasn't that long ago. East Palestine, Ohio. For those of you that aren't familiar, there was a train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio on February 3rd, 2023, and it was kind of a big deal, Aaron Brockovich style.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was released when this train derailment happened? There was a little something called vinyl chloride. Okay. Vinyl chloride. It's a colorless gas used to make the hard plastic resin, is a carcinogen, and burning it releases phosgene, a toxic gas that was used as a weapon during World War I.
So super good to breathe in, right?
It's like really good for your lungs.
Yeah, and to drink it in your water.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, why not?
Why
I mean,
not?
it was an ingredient. It was like a mustard gas ingredient in World War One. All right. Okay. So far, 3,500 that we know of aquatic animals have been killed that they've been able to count. People have been reporting nausea, headaches, burning eyes. Interesting. Vinyl chloride is associated with an increased risk in a number of cancers. I mean, you were just talking about sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar. And how bad sugar is for you.
Yep, go to vinyl chloride.
Vinyl chloride. Okay, including a rare liver cancer called hepatic angiosarcoma.
Where is it? Hepatic angiosarcoma.
Exactly what she said.
Mm-hmm.
How common are train derailments, people? Interestingly, they're actually super common. How many train derailments do you think there were in 2022? Just last year. Total.
5.
Total in the whole.
7.
1,044. What was the last thing
really
that you
bad
tried
at
to guess a
guessing
number
numbers.
at, and it was like really awful? I was talking about it at the beginning.
Every time you've asked me, because I'm a positive person, glass half full. Turns out the glass is a nuclear bomb.
It's a terrible idea. According to the Department of Transportation, Mayor Pete's department, about 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are transported by rail each year. Did I say mustard gas? Did I talk about World War I? So 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are transported every year, and just last year there was 1,044 derailments.
Okay, I gotta say something.
Yep.
Okay. Historically, there's a lot of controversy over IQ measurements. One consistent controversy is that when you look at the mean IQ of different races and ethnicities, there is some very strange there's some strange data, right? That's very uncomfortable because it looks like certain races are higher in intellect and intelligence quotient than other ones. But when you actually unpack it with like the confounding variables, what you get is a combination of things. First of all, childhood disease and the fighting of health adverse conditions contributes to limited brain development, which contributes to a diminished, slightly diminished IQ in that individual. So now we have a railway system with consistent derailments, with carcinogens that end up going into the water and the air of those places that are typically suburban and rural. And they have higher levels of impoverishment, and they have often, especially as you get toward urban areas, but not quite into the urbanized areas, you're going to get areas and pockets where there is going to be an extreme level of carcinogenic environmental issues. So now what we're getting into is you've now, as a society, and this is related to Pete, your job is to make sure people are like transported, their goods are transported, everything is safe. But now you actually are having a hand in a widespread diminishment of the cognitive development of your citizens because you are not monitoring the ability to safely transport harmful chemicals. You are actually responsible for long-term harm and potentially widespread freecism as a result of your deficiency. That's scary.
Yep, for sure.
Pollution sucks. Makes people
the trailer
have a hard
hood of
time.
the trailer hood in East Palestine is going to be not looking good for a while.
For a while, they're going to have developmental issues. Sorry, go ahead.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So 13 days after the derailment, the mayor of East Palestine, Trent Conway, stated that he had heard nothing from the White House. That he had heard nothing from Mayor Pete, Secretary of Transportation. The residents were told that they were ineligible, air fingers quote, for FEMA help because their homes were not destroyed by the toxic train derailment. Many people asked, where's Mayor Pete? Biden stayed silent for 2 weeks after the disaster before he even mentioned it. Mayor Pete decided to visit one time 20 days after the incident on February 23rd. Biden hasn't visited. He still hasn't visited to this day.
He still hasn't gone there?
Wouldn't hold my breath. Would not hold my breath. As a matter of fact, the day that the train derailment took place, or the day after the train derailment, I believe, he gave $50 million, or I think it was another $50 million to Ukraine.
He did for Biden.
No, well, Pete can't give money to Ukraine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said Pete. I was like, how's he going to do? Okay,
no I mean, Biden gave $50 million to Ukraine like a day after the derailment and told people of East Palestine
to suck it.
Good luck. Hey, don't worry. Trump's going to show up with some like water bottles that say Trump. Petey's going to show up 20 days after and give a speech. Aaron Brockovich will probably show up and say some shit. Like, you guys will be all right. Your kids will probably be all right.
Meanwhile, forget that your kids are going to have really developmental deficiencies.
Their kids, right? Because only people that are
God forbid you're pregnant.
Only people that have power and authority and money care about their kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, those are the only people that do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Congratulations to our coward of the week again, Mayor Pete. There's an old saying about folks that are entirely dependent on the state. When second count, help is only minutes away. The government continuously espouses the ideal that they're the answer to all your needs. They will protect you, feed you, house you, employ you, inform you about misinformation, provide you medical care. All one must do is submit, pay taxes, obey all laws. Remember, we incarcerate more people than any other society on earth in history.
Yep.
Of fucking forever.
Yep.
Simply trust the government. Until it's time to trust the government. Don't ask questions about weapons of mass destruction, Ukraine, the Patriot Act, the Department of Homeland Security, the temporary suspension of your constitutional rights of American citizens without their knowledge or due process. Hell, we'll just kill American citizens without due process overseas if they're deemed dead to be combatants. Mm-hmm. Historically terrible, racist, bigoted Supreme Court decisions, Jim Crow, Dred Scott, eugenics.
Not to mention the sexist policies.
On and on and on and on about that stuff. How about COVID-19? The Wuhan lab in China, dare I say. The credibility of Dr. Fauci. I can hear the sirens showing up to our house now.
Mm-hmm. Because don't you know, Fauci is science.
Getting ready to... When you criticize Dr. Fauci, you criticize science.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like my favorite quote ever. He sounded like a fucking gargoyle.
He is a gargoyle.
That's what he said. When you criticize Dr. Fauci, you criticize science. Okay, bud.
That is the most arrogant, asinine statement.
How about gain of function research? Mandatory vaccinations. Pharmaceutical companies. Trust us. Or lose your job. Home. Family. Possibly be incarcerated. Did I say that we incarcerate more people than any other society on earth? Sweet. The good people of East Palestine, Ohio need the government right now. Right now. They need FEMA Now, they need the EPA, which trusted the reports from the railroad industry from third parties that were hired by the railroad companies to administer checks on the water supply. The EPA used their fucking work.
It's because our federal government contracts out to private corporate contractors who have vested
But
interest.
this is the thing. It was hired by the railroad company, not the EPA.
Yeah.
And the EPA used those people's data to say that the water in East Palestine was fine.
Because it was cheaper.
Because we're all a bunch of fucking idiots.
Yep.
That's what we are.
Yep.
We're a bunch of idiots. We don't know shit about shit, and they can tell us anything we want, and we just eat it up. That's who we are.
Yep.
Okay. They needed Mayor Pete on February 3rd. And most importantly, they needed Pete to hold the railroad industry's feet to the fire. Yeah. But he didn't. Won't. Just like the airline industry. Yeah. It's nonsense. Okay? Buttigieg won't budge for his corporate, for the benefit of the people over the corporate overlords. Mm-hmm. Petey is a coward who is concerned with nothing more than his political future. He wants to be president of the United States, not Secretary of Transportation. This job was supposed to pave the way to the next job. Why are you people so mad? Why are you making this so difficult with all your expectations and questions? Peasants! Peasants. This isn't about you. It's not. Make no mistake. Everything is about money and power. Everything. Everything. Lots of folks out there liked you, Pete. My wife liked you. Beautiful, smart. She liked you. Come to find out you're not special. You're not the standard, the water carrier, the norm. You're the typical politician that people are talking about when they're talking about typical politicians, bud. Mm-hmm. You are not the exception. Unfortunately for us, you're simply another coward in a long line of cowards.
It's true.
To you.
I never put out a yard sign before.
I was there.
I feel so betrayed.
It was a sad moment.
It's really sad. When you saw that I had a yard sign? All right. We're going to end on a positive note. We're going to go for our hero of the week. And my hero is not a necessarily current living human being. But my hero of the week is Paulo Freire. So, Brazilian author of The Pedagogy of the Oppressed and other works, Paulo Freire encountered poverty that was both natural and state-sponsored. So his ethos was that popular education, and in this context, popular education means education for the populace and the people, not education that's like super cool and everybody likes it.
I like super cool education. I like.
Well, here's the thing. Popular education is the means to freedom. So he had been imprisoned and exiled for his commitment to freeing people through learning and through dismantling the hierarchies of formalized top-down education and politics. And one of my favorite quotes from him is, "There is no such thing as neutral education. Education either functions as an instrument to bring about conformity or freedom." This is why he's my hero of the week, because he sees education as access to information that frees you, not insists upon your compliance. So be hesitant. Question everything. Learn from those that lied to you, both from what they lied about and why you believe them, because that is how you stay free.
Remember the last paper I wrote for my master's?
Mm-hmm.
When I talked about the value of education over institutions, and the reason why American institutions are failing is because the populace is becoming educated enough to know that they're being lied to.
Yes. I also remember the last line of one of your last assignments was, "And if you don't agree, I am your adversary."
I am your adversary. Not yours. Theirs.
Okay.
Love you, babe.
I love you.
Good work.
Perfect.